Welcome. This is the Blue Amp live stream, and I know what you're thinking. Cliff Schechter, you look amazing. You look so youthful and sharp and, well, swole. Honestly, you've never looked better, and you're right in a way because I'm not Cliff. I'm Matt Robeson. I'm a former congressional staffer and campaign manager. I write for Newsweek. I host the podcast Beyond Politics, and I usually host this live stream on Tuesdays. But our good friend Cliff called me up a few days ago and said, hey, I've got Katie Fang coming on my show, but she's only available on Tuesdays, so let's do a switch. And I said, sweet, I'll take the Christmas Eve show, and we will have an amazing time. So thank you all for joining on whatever platform you're on, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or my Substack, Worth Knowing, worthknowing.substack.com. Even if you're multitasking right now, putting ornaments on the tree, doing some last-minute online shopping, just plain chilling with eggnog. It's great to be together. And if you're missing your recommended daily allowance of Cliff, have no fear. He's going to pop in a little bit later in the show. He's got something really important, really worthwhile cooking for later today, and he's going to pop in and tell us all about it. We've got a great show today. Former Associated Press, Europe and Middle East editor Dan Perry is joining. We're going to talk about why Barry Weiss and CBS and other major media outlets continue to bow down in fear of Donald Trump, even as his power base is straight up evaporating under his feet. We'll also get Dan's incredible insights from around the globe and on the United States as we head into the end of the year. And at the end of the show, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about what I wrote up on my Substack yesterday, worthknowing.substack.com, about whether we're about to hit the MAGA tipping point. You'll see what I mean. But I think there's a lot of evidence that the end could be coming faster than people realize. And at the very, very end of the show, I want to talk a little bit about a topic near and dear to my heart, Jewish Christmas. But first, I want to take a few minutes before Dan gets here to do a Spotify Wrapped on Donald Trump's 2025 year in review. This is something that I wrote up on Newsweek this morning, just appeared fresh on Newsweek. Here it is. Wow. They really leave a lot of white space on the page. And I wrote it up under the title, What Did Donald Trump Accomplish This Year? And that's really what I set out to do. I wanted to talk a little bit about what the actual record is, because what we're seeing in the polling is that something new is dawning on even Donald Trump supporters. They're beginning to see at year's end that all they've gotten in 2025 for their vote, for their support, frequently for their money, is a lot of yelling. And I opened it up by saying that Donald Trump's 2025 could be summarized in Macbeth's phrase. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. If you look at issue after signature issue from the 2024 campaign, which I did in this article, and we're going to do for just a few minutes right now, if you go down the list, you'll see that there's been a lot of loud performative gestures, but the actual record runs from a goose egg to a gobsmacking failure. It's really remarkable. And let me just say up front that I'm going to make every effort to be objective about this. I really am. If you go to the Newsweek article, or I'll probably put it out on Substack tomorrow so you can just look there, you will see that I brought all the receipts. I sourced everything very carefully. I really do want to be objective about this because I'm hoping to talk not just to the kinds of people who tune in here and are active in the chats right now. Thank you. Merry Christmas Eve to all of the chat family, or whatever it is you're celebrating right now. I want to not just talk to us. I want to talk to the people who are saying, hey, really, like, what the hell? What have I gotten for all this? For the people who are on the fence, who are questioning. That's why I write in Newsweek, even though, they do platform an awful lot of people that I firmly disagree with. I write there because I want to reach the people who are gettable, who are persuadable. So that's what I set out to do here. So my source for all of this was the 2024 Republican Party platform. Remember how they basically just turned the keys to the car over to Donald Trump and said, we like whatever you like. It was like that scene in Coming to America where the intended betrothed of Prince Hakeem is just like, I like whatever you like. That's essentially what the Republican Party platform was. And they all caps shouted their priorities. end inflation and make America affordable again. It's like they had Kimberly Guilfoyle out to do it. We will have the largest deportation operation in American history. Oh gosh, this hurts my own ears. End the weaponization of government. The list goes on and on. You can look it up if you want. So let's go down the list and let's do a little bit of a scorecard here. On the economy, despite the shouted harangue that we all received from Donald Trump last week, by the way, which was like, I think the implicit message was, I'll keep berating you until morale improves. That always works. America is ending 2025 with unemployment the highest in 4 years and prices about 3% higher, depending on the measure of inflation that you use. Most of that increase, and I have sourcing on this, most of the price increase that we've seen in 2025 is because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, Donald Trump has said that he thinks affordability is, quote, a hoax. Voters do not agree. Voters consistently say it's the most important thing to them. And I include a link in here to another Newsweek article with 6 separate polls showing how much voters, including MAGA voters, overwhelmingly blame their president for their economic problems. As for his all caps shouted goal, I will not do the all caps shout at you guys, to, quote, stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower, which was supposedly the reason behind dropping this tariff bomb on the economy. Let's just say it's not going great. Manufacturing jobs are down. Outsourcing is up. And our trade deficit is $112 billion higher. You read that right. That's, by the way, Trump's own administration numbers. $112 billion higher, despite all of the tariff nonsense. Now, I'm going to go just a little bit further here with you than I did in the Newsweek article, because again, I think the economy is the most important thing. Oh, and by the way, I'd like to say hi to all the Christmas trolls out there. Dude, Justin Gaskell, you're a dope. Goodbye. See ya. Thank you to all the people in the chat family for like hanging with the deluge. My gosh, Christmas trolls. Like, don't you have something better to do? Get a life, people. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the economy, a little bit in more depth than I did in Newsweek, because it is true. It is true that there are economic measurables that are going well. Let's just take a step back and look at what has happened here, because the story of the last 5 years is how big ticket items, healthcare, housing, childcare, have become wildly unaffordable for most Americans. And after that, there was this COVID-induced surge in inflation. Not Joe Biden's fault, but it is what it is. Nothing's fair in life. So let's just move on. It happened. And that made credit card bills and groceries start going through the roof. And then because of the AI-induced build out in data centers, utility prices started going up, which means that electricity has become unaffordable. Our energy bills have become unaffordable. And then Trump's trade war pushed up the cost of clothing and food further and other goods. And then at the very end of this year, Republicans absolutely epically failed to continue health insurance subsidies, meaning that 22 million Americans are about to get an average premium spike of $1,000. So in response to this, Trump, he hasn't been the most intellectually consistent in the world. His line has been, it's not real, it's a hoax. So buy fewer things. Your kids need fewer dolls. You need fewer pencils. I'm not making this up. These are literally things he said. He's also, in a kind of confusing fashion, said, okay, it's real, but it's getting better. People can't believe how much better it's getting. Of course we can't believe it, because it's not, right? It's not getting any better. But still, again, this is all, to be fair, real disposable income is near its highest point in history. And it's true that American consumption is at its highest point ever. And we did get new numbers yesterday from the Commerce Department that GDP grew significantly in the third quarter, a 4.3% annual rate. But that is a bit of an illusion. It's more than a bit. It's a major illusion, because wage growth and cost of living and consumer spending have continued to be up and down. And the most important thing, and I'll put this up on the screen here, and I'm sorry if people are listening to this on the pod on audio later. Watch video. This is why video pods are so popular. I mean, for one thing, people have been talking a lot about the K-shaped recovery. And what they mean, what people are referring to, I don't like this term because it's confusing. Look, I studied economics. I have a master's degree in public policy in which I tutored people in economics, and I don't even understand what they mean by K. This is what they mean by K-shaped recovery, okay? That there are industries that are doing well, tech, software, and then there are industries not doing so well. But to me, what's more relevant, what it really means, is that the recovery is among people who are already wealthy. Here's another graph. The top 10% of income earners in the US now account for about half of consumer spending. So when you see a 4.3% annualized rate of GDP growth in the third quarter, that's a lot of qualifiers there, but that's what was just announced. And the White House, says, see, things are working. Everything is great. Don't look at anything else. When you see that, that's on the backs of the K-shaped recovery in certain sectors that fuels very wealthy people in America. Top 10% of wealth in America, of income in America. They're the ones doing most of the spending. That's what's fueling that economic strength from a 30,000 foot level. And that's not really relevant for the vast majority of us. So that's the economy. Let me just quickly touch on, because Dan is on the way, and I want to make space for him to cover all the things that we want to get into. I just want to do the rest of the report card. What about deportation, right? I mean, we've seen all those ICE raids that are explicitly designed for social media. Amazing report in WAPO about that. What about all those Flashpoint National Guard deployments? What about Kristi Noem cosplaying as a tough gal in the Secot prison, in that photo op? Well, hold on to your red hats, because would you believe, this is true, that Donald Trump is actually on pace to achieve fewer deportations in 2025 than Joe Biden did in 2024? You can look it up right in my article. He's on pace to achieve far fewer deportations than Barack Obama did at his peak. Now think about that. That's why you see these news stories keep emerging of White House officials huddling to get yelled at by Stephen Miller in a sweaty panic, and then they do these rounds of firings inside of ICE. They're on track by their own numbers to deport 600,000 people this year. Biden deported 685,000. They are failing. Don't let anyone on the right tell you otherwise. Their own goals. They're failing. This is all for the cameras. It's all an illusion. And for the trolls out here, I will just say that okay, I'm not gonna ban Raymond here. I'll put Raymond Doran 3023 up on the screen. You, sir, are full of bull. Look, at least you called me sir, and you have every right to come on here and say that. If you're not trolling, he is 100% of verifiably wrong. Okay, look, come subscribe to worthknowing.substack.com. I brought all the numbers. You can see for yourself. If you don't believe me, do the research. I'm open to debates, but these are the facts. What about peace and security? I'm going to talk about this with Dan in a minute. I'll go light on this one because I want to ask him about it. But suffice it to say that Donald Trump's claims of ending 7 wars are pure fantasies. CBS News actually debunked that. They went war by war. No one tell Barry Weiss that they did that. We'll come back to that. What about ending the weaponization of government? Well, I would like to share with you Reuters documenting at least 470 people, organizations, and institutions that Trump has singled out for retaliation. What? Fighting the deep state. Well, I've covered this extensively on my Substack and in Newsweek. Trump's fired a lot of people, but he's mostly fired the competent ones, and that's caused his own agenda to get stalled out of pure incompetence. And by the way, deep dive reporting, New York Times, Doge, total failure. It didn't cut a cent. It didn't cut spending at all. Now, as far as fighting wokeness goes, Harvard did rename its DEI center, and They consolidated several websites that focused on race and gender into one website. So take that, libs. Ha, you've been owned. All right, look, I'm going to cut this short here because I see that Dan is backstage and I want to bring him on. But I invite people, come subscribe, worthknowing.substack.com. You can read the rest of the report card. Suffice it to say that there's a reason that in polling, 14% of Trump's voters already regret their vote. They wish they had a do-over. Now, those people don't seem to be in the chats today, but that's fine. There's a reason for that. And the only question now is how long until the rest of them have the scales fall from their eyes. But with that, let's bring on my good friend, Dan Perry, former AP editor in every region of the globe that exists, including the island that was only occupied by penguins that previously Donald Trump assessed tariffs against. There is not a region on earth, I believe, for which you have not served as AP lead editor. Prove me wrong. Actually, don't. Let's just move on. It's truthy enough.
I'll take it.
Dan, I want to start here. I want to talk about 60 Minutes because, I'm having fun with it, but you are the former lead AP editor for the Middle East and for Europe. You have significant, substantial experience in news media. And I really want to get your reaction to what Bari Weiss has done. And let me just preview something here for a second. See, now someone's got to get banned. Now, couple typical lib queefs. Wow, that's just rude. Fuck you. Goodbye. See ya. I love this. This is great. I feel really fantastic. So, Dan, in all seriousness, Bari Weiss tried to spike this story on the Trump administration's actions deporting people, many of whom had committed no law violations at all, or no significant violations of the law at all, to a foreign gulag where they were sexually abused and tortured. Of course, they messed it up because they aired it accidentally in Canada, and now it's all over the internet. And let me just preview for people who are missing Cliff. That Cliff is going to pop in right as Dan needs to depart us in about half an hour. Cliff is going to pop in and preview what he's doing later today, which I hope people will hang on for. He is going to air the entire 60-minute segment and break it down piece by piece. It's a public service. It's great. I'm really looking forward to it. He's going to talk more about it, but I want to just play 30 seconds of it right now so people could get the gist of it. You can see it here. And then, Dan, I'd like to get your reaction to this entire episode.
These people are migrants. And the sad reality is that the US government tried to make an example out of them. They sent them to a place where they were likely to be tortured, to send migrants across Latin America the message that they should not come to the United States.
Juan Papier is a deputy director at the nonprofit Human Rights Watch. In an 81-page report released in November, the organization concluded there was systematic torture and other abuses at Secot, and that nearly half of the Venezuelans the U.S. sent there had no criminal history.
Dan, this is a significant news story. It deserves to air on our preeminent news magazine on TV. What was your reaction to this entire affair?
Well, dismay is the only conceivable reaction. But I have to temper that by saying I wasn't there, didn't speak to Bari Weiss, don't really know what happened. I'm going by the reporting of it, and the reporting suggests that the story was at least delayed, if not spiked. And, sometimes you can delay indefinitely and hope it goes away, and it effectively is a spiking. But that it was delayed at least because the U.S. government hadn't commented or had refused to comment. Well, it's legitimate, indeed imperative, to ask the U.S. government to comment. You have to give them a reasonable amount of time. If such time were given and they don't want to comment, to then spike the story amounts to giving the U.S. government a veto. And that's craziness. Can you imagine if that had been applied to everything, to the Pentagon Papers, to Watergate? It's absurd. So I can hardly believe that a newswoman of the caliber of Bari Weiss actually did that, and therefore I'm holding fire a little bit because I want to know what really happened. I understand that the people involved in the show have been writing letters and complaining, and I know their version, but I haven't heard her version. The suspicion, very clearly, is that um, everything about this entire thing is about the bigger story of CBS currying favor with the Trump administration in order to get them to approve, which they have after delays, the merger with Skydance Media. And so that merger, which is critical, uh, the government has the option of actually preventing it on antitrust grounds, extremely subjective. And, they were afraid. And so they sold their soul. That is the narrative that critics will believe. I find it so shocking that I am really just waiting for the next shoe to drop. But if it were so, then we're talking about a monumental failure of journalism, especially when we're talking here not just about CBS News, but 60 Minutes, which is the crown jewel of CBS News. And they this would not be the first disgrace. I mean, several decades ago, of course, they refused to go with the story about how tobacco companies knew that their product was addictive and carcinogenic based on insider information, which became the movie Insider, but never became The Insider, but never became uh, a 60-minute story because they spiked it for fear of being sued. Well, the fear of being sued, at least, is practical and understandable, and it's business. This is kind of those craven politics, hoping Trump will think better of you and not call you fake news, the way he does to NBC at
Is it is
news
that really the
conference.
difference here? Because, just circling back, you identified what I think is sort of the answer to the query that we posed in the title of why, with so much trouble in the MAGA world, which we saw in the Turning Point, confab, whatever they call it, cross burning, whatever it is that they did this past weekend, we saw it on full display. There are huge splits, and Trump himself is cratering the polls. So why the preemptive running scared from media, from Barry Weiss, from 60 Minutes? And what you just outlined is interesting because you're saying, on the one hand, it is kind of a preemptive move. Paramount is trying to wedge its way into the Warner deal. They're trying to dislodge Netflix's board-approved takeover. They're looking for some intervention from the Trump administration in their favor. And so it sounds like the distinction you're making here is in the previous cases where CBS's corporate ownership was Westinghouse at the time, crumbled, it was under legal threat, legal pressure, right? The insider case, the Jeffrey Wigand cigarette case was about the threat of a lawsuit, tortious interference. The recent deal that they cut over the Kamala Harris editing, which is normal journalistic practice, was again under threat of a vexatious lawsuit, but nonetheless, it might have been frivolous, but it could have been a threat, so they settled it.
It
All
was
right,
enough
fine.
for them to pay him $16 million.
Right. But the distinction you're making is that this is a horse of a different color. This is trying to kind of launch a preemptive strike to curry favor with the FCC so they'll get involved, or maybe they'll get involved on antitrust grounds, and they'll try to tilt things in Paramount's favor.
Yeah. Antitrust, as I said, is notoriously subjective. You can play with the benchmarks. The government can absolutely delay and obfuscate. And when companies are heavily leveraged and they really need the merger, this can be deadly. And so the government has a lot of power. Same thing, by the way, with the FCC's power over broadcast rights when it comes to the airwaves, right? We remember what happened with Jimmy Kimmel, where the head of the FCC goes on a right-wing podcast and starts sounding like a mafioso, saying, well, this Kimmel thing, we may have an interesting time, and we may have to reconsider their license, and I mean, the objection to Kimmel was political. The distribution of licenses is not meant to be political. We essentially in America trust our system to not, well, to basically not, we trust our leaders and the bureaucrats they install to not abuse every potential loophole, because there are going to be loopholes, and it turns out that that trust, under Trump 2.0, maybe even before, but more so now, is completely misplaced. They have discovered some amazing things. For example, um, Trump has discovered that he can act illegally, and basically not much to be done under the U.S. system if the majority party in the Senate are a bunch of lemmings, which they are, and the court system is slow, which it is. So, I could say we're going to execute every person named Matt, and a whole bunch of Matts are going to die by the time the courts get around to declaring it illegal.
Let me tell you something. If you followed that policy, you would wipe out virtually every dude in my generation. We're all named Matt or Dave.
There's a whole bunch of Matts, I know.
And there's a few Dans sprinkled in there.
And some Cliffs as well.
Yeah, a few
Listen,
Cliffs.
it's ridiculous. And that's what you see with the tariffs. The tariffs are illegal. And, the courts are too slow to deal with this. And of course, the jewel in the crown of this malfeasance is that the Supreme Court kind of looks like it's bought and paid for. So they know it's illegal. But I assume they're going to leave no stone unturned in an effort to at least validate some version of the tariffs. I'm not going to go on about why they're illegal, but I know we're talking about something else.
Well,
the same thing.
No, it's fine. Here, let me do two things. Because I kind of punted on the exercise I was doing at the top of the show while I was filibustering, waiting for you. And it's something that's really right up your alley. Before I get there, I do want to say that I'm trying, as I always do, I'm trying to get comments from people out in the chats up on the screen. And I just, so people know, if you usually are used to Cliff here, I have a policy. I have an approach for this. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you're being insulting to people, you're bounced. But if you just flat out disagree, or you want to make a case, like, look, here's a reasonable policy case. Karen had to blue. I'm so sorry. 8473 says ACA isn't not affordable. All right. I know what you mean. Don't use no double negatives, people. We need to get rid of this. Okay. That is a reasonable policy argument. And I'm all about it. Now, there are people in the chat saying things like, Doge was amazing. It saved $300 billion. Well, okay, let's debate that. I'm happy to another time. I'm not going to use Dan's time for this, but there's a deep dive investigation in the New York Times about this just this week. And it turns out that Doge's 13 largest savings claims were just false. 28 of its 40 top receipts, false. They said that they saved nearly $8 billion in ending 2 Pentagon contracts. Those contracts don't exist. So anyway, I would urge people, if you're going to make contributions, chats, I welcome it. You disagree with me, fine. If you're rotting dead 187 and you want to point out that you just bought 100 pounds of Mir for under $100, I'm going to tell you that Mir is very cheap. Meat, on the other hand, is incredibly expensive. Okay.
Well, Matt, they did fire like 300,000 people, is it? So you could say that reduced expenses. The problem is that not every expense you reduce is wise. Like if you stop eating, you might save, a couple $100 a week, but you'll die.
Well, and
So
let me to
it was
that
just
point.
stupid.
All right. Well, let's go to this. This takes me right into your wheelhouse. Since you really have covered every corner of the globe. One of Trump's core claims in his Spotify Wrap for 2025 is that he's ended 7 wars. As I alluded to a moment ago, that is horse pucky. It's not true. There was a great deep dive on it in CBS News. He is taking credit for partial ceasefires, some of which he had nothing to do with, some of which are really not ending wars. Let's not forget that he claimed that he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours on something like 50 separate occasions. He was not joking about that. He made that claim over and over again. It is still raging. I want to be fair that he gets some credit for the ceasefire that is still mostly holding between Israel and Hamas, something that you know a ton about. But I also want to point out, to your point a moment ago, that his destruction of USAID is estimated to kill 330,000 people this year, 230,000 of them children. So it's hard to say that this is someone who is spreading peace and goodwill at this time of year. He has inflicted an incredible amount of pain around the world, largely on children. And what do you make of this claim that he is an agent of peace?
It's mostly absurd. As for the 7 or 8 wars that he claims to have ended, the only ones that have any element of reality are, of course, the ceasefire in Gaza, which you mentioned, and which his team really was focused on, and the plan it came up with is a good plan. So, that's one. It may not be over, and Hamas is doing everything it can to gum up the works, but let's give him credit for that. The trip agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan actually did forestall what was feared to be an Azerbaijani invasion of Armenia that they had been planning in order to connect.
So you are a world expert on this. I mean, people, no joke, like Dan Perry knows as much about this as anyone on planet Earth. So you give him some legit credit there.
Oh, I give him. I mean, I think those two add up to like 1.75. As for the others, it's basically bullshit. I mean, India, Pakistan, that was such nonsense that in fact India got tariffed for refusing to go along with his claim of having made peace with Pakistan. The ones he's claiming in Africa are just like absurdly false. Couldn't be more false. And he does what he can to add falsehoods even to things that might potentially be true, like Gaza. He insists that the war he ended was a 3,000-year war that cost millions of lives, and all of that is just laughable nonsense. And the Israelis hear it, and they're like, okay, whatever. No one. The thing is, with Trump, the lies and just bullshit come so fast and furious that it kind of seems like he's daring you to call him out because you look petty. And that's part of why everyone's failing in knowing how to deal with this. No one knows how to deal with someone who lies all the time. And by the time you've proven to the audience that one thing was a lie, he's on to the next lie. And, take what I just said about the details around the Israel-Gaza thing, which at best, Israel and the Palestinians are a 100-year war. Okay? And millions did not die. More like tens of thousands. But I'm sure someone told it. All right, someone must have said, Mr. President, it actually was different numbers. He doubles and triples down on his original because I think it's a feature and not a bug. I think something about the thing that got this guy elected is that he figured out that there's a lot of people in the American body politic that just like to upset you. And when he lies all the time and you get all worked up, they're happy. They don't care. They don't care what's true.
Trigger. Own the libs. Own the libs.
They hate the educated classes, the elites, the literate people who actually know how many years has been Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They don't give a damn about any of that. They want you to be upset. And that's why Trump lies on their behalf. I think he may not be as dumb as he seems.
Speaking of doubling down and of topics that are right in your wheelhouse, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Venezuela. The latest from Trump. It'd be smart for. I can't do it, Trump. I'm not good at it. Are you good at Trump? Do you do it? No, you don't do it.
I can't do Trump, but I can do his fingers like this when he does this every time he speaks.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
You should add that to your repertoire.
I'm workshopping it. I really need to. This has to be in my bag, and it's just not. So his latest quote: "It would be smart for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to step down. If he plays tough, it'd be the last time he's ever able to play tough." Wow, we're so intimidated by you, Admiral Bone Spurs, with your body that has the same consistency as snotty tissue. Oh my gosh, you're such a muscular He-Man. Oh, So aside from the cosplaying, Trump seems to be really committed to this bit. And it's cost the lives of 100 people in extrajudicial killings that may or may not have involved drug trafficking. There is no evidence that it did. We have Republicans in the U.S. Senate, like Republicans, people before the MAGAs who are in. Look, if you're a Republican and you're in the chats, you're welcome. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to provoke you. There are people in your party who we mutually respect who are saying this shit going on is not okay. Congress did not authorize this, and we want to see that videotape. What's the end game for this, Dan? Like, what is going to happen here? You have an undeclared war and increased saber rattling. Where is this going?
It's anyone's guess, because clearly it depends on the whims of one person who's a very weird guy. So predicting where it's going to go really is a fool's errand. I won't go there. It kind of looks like Trump enjoys rattling a saber at somebody. And he has these street smarts. He knows how to pick that somebody. So even though what's happening in the Caribbean with these what you called extrajudicial killings, more like
It's a
assassination.
euphemism, man.
Yeah, it really is, man. That has all the aspects of war crimes, and murder essentially. And the fact that Hegseth is stupid enough to brag about it is like, God, I mean, it should be a disqualification, like, well, one of maybe 20. Um, but Maduro really is a bad guy, and Chavismo in Venezuela really did destroy a nice country. And if we found a way to get rid of him, that would be an enormous favor to the Venezuelan people, what's left of them, because millions have fled the country. Um, and whereas they're not necessarily all going to America, I mean, that is part of what's driving the desperate migration from the South. I'm not generally a huge fan of interfering in other countries' business, but no one's going to shed tears over Maduro, who is a criminal, corrupt and violent and murderous and unelected. I mean, he falsified the recent election. He's about as big a dick as exists on, the international stage. So I think Trump figures to rattle a saber at him is kind of a good look. I think he doesn't have the courage to actually do what's necessary, which is to invade Venezuela. And I'm not sure I'd recommend doing that with U.S. troops. But if they could somehow scare him into, abdicating and fleeing the country, that would be actually kind of clever. It may end up being the best thing he's done, and maybe other than the Gaza Israel ceasefire, the only good thing he's done. I mean, the list of terrible things Trump has done in a mere 11 months is mind bending. But so if they get rid of Maduro, that doesn't make my list of bad things. It'll actually be a good thing. But currently, what we're seeing is nonsense and war crimes and all kinds of other stuff.
I want to address some comments that we've gotten in the chats. It's going to take us onto an area that you struggle with, that you talk about on your Substack. Ask questions later. People can look it up. I urge them to subscribe. It's an interesting issue. And by the way, I'm going to address comments coming at us here from people who do not agree with us. We first have Somerville SC Dan, so I'm guessing South Carolina, crying laughing, and saying, when you claim to have facts and then use mainstream media as sources, and Doge was about finding the fraud, wake up. Okay. But the main part I wanted to capture here was laughing when you claim to have facts and then use the mainstream media sources. That's one. And then number two, we have John-G101C saying, don't y'all get tired of talking about things you know nothing about. So here's the thing. I was joking at the top of Dan's appearance about his resume, but it's no joke. Dan is a deep, deep expert in world affairs. You have been an editor for the Associated Press for Europe, the Middle East, Africa, like South America. I mean, you really, really know world affairs.
Well, but this guy distrusts journalists. So if you present my credentials as largely predicated on journalistic work, he's gonna see you as having confirmed his disdain.
Absolutely. I'll just say, without like spraining a shoulder, patting myself on the back for my resume, like for what it's worth, because this is leading to a question. I spent a decade working in Congress as a policy director, a legislative director, we call it, a chief of staff. I have done congressional work on committees that cover.
You're legitimately accomplished.
I've done something. I write about this. I research about it. I have a degree in public policy from Harvard. All of these things that I'm saying are disqualifying depending on your point of view. So I guess my question to Somerville, SC Dan, and John Dash, the other things, is what sources would you accept? What sources of expertise would you accept? Because I don't know of anyone personally. Like I know some deep experts on things, but I struggle to find people who know more about what they're talking about than Dan. And I think I'm on pretty firm ground when I speak about economics. I used to tutor other Harvard students on economics. So Dan, how do you deal with this? I mean, you must have struggled with this as an AP editor.
Deal with people distrusting journalism?
How do you deal with the credibility factor of, how do you get through to people and have them trust what you're saying? And how do you do it on your Substack now?
There's no easy answer. I mean, all of us can start rattling off our resume, which might include work on the Hill or in journalism, or, in my case, I have advanced degrees in engineering and computer science. I mean, there's things about all of us that are known and not known, and maybe that'll make someone believe when we make a claim. But realistically, the people you're citing, their objection comes not from an observation of insufficient intellectual rigor or research, but from a political position where they disagree with it, and the sources they're likely to accept are right-wing think tanks, or right-wing politicians, even worse, or right-wing media. We're talking about, a self-validating loop in an echo chamber that will accept nothing that comes from outside. How do you deal with it? I mean, convincing people is notoriously difficult in life in general. Politics have become so incredibly radicalized that it's almost impossible to get people to move once they are moored in a particular side. When it happens, it generally happens because of a personal experience. That cannot be Matt or Dan talking at them. It generally is not going to be something they read. Elections, by some kind of weird alchemy in most countries on most things, pretty much break down 50-50. It's amazing. Brexit passed by 52%. If you look at the last 4 American elections, all of them hovered around 50% for the victor, 51%. I mean, it really is absurd. We could have a referendum on whether today is, Wednesday or Thursday, and I bet you it'd be like 50-50. And not because it's already Thursday in some parts of the world, just because there's a lot of confusion. And the world is more complicated than 7 days of the week, and no one understands anything. And so they just go to their trusted sources, which are people they tend to agree with. It used to be that mainstream media was like, the campfire that the whole village was around, and they kind of believed the mainstream media. But the crystallization of media, the fact that everyone, including my daughters, is now a publisher that can instantly reach 8 billion people, has broken that down. And there's too many voices. You don't know who to believe. And the mainstream media has been drowned out. We've also been unlucky enough to have a lot of bad faith players that are extremely talented politicians who have an interest in weakening the media because they want to install authoritarianism. That was just bad luck. The fact that we ended up with people like Netanyahu and Putin and Erdogan and Trump, who are such great politicians and have an enormous interest in undermining the media because they don't want criticism. So that's where we are.
Well, I made a commitment to you because you're incredibly busy, and it is Christmas Eve, and you have a slate to pack, that I would get you out of here at 2:45. So I am going to do that. I will just say that, like I said a few minutes ago at the top of the show, one of the reasons that I write for Newsweek, which draws some criticism from my Democratic Party leaning friends is that it features people from both sides. It features straight out MAGA people. I do a debate series. You appear in Newsweek. You do a debate series against those same people. And so for anyone out there who's in the chats, again, I genuinely appreciate you. If you disagree and you're willing to stand in here and, make your case, make your comments, we are happy to engage and debate. Absolutely. And not a negative way at all. So
Well,
I would
can I make one point?
please. And then we have someone lurking backstage, so this will be fun. I'll get you out and I'll get him on.
Say hi to Cliff for me. I said before that elections tend to be like evenly divided when you have a binary choice. And we're living in such a mulish time because the echo chambers on social media that reinforce constantly what we believe already, that it's difficult to convince anyone. But the thing is, someone does win. Elections are decided by the 5 to 10% in every given country on any given issue that are persuadable. So we might think that the vast majority of people who don't agree with us are, unpersuadable, and most of them indeed are. But a minority is. And so if you want to have a useful debate and you want to feel like there's a chance that you can move enough people over with your brilliant arguments that you've made a difference, it is about addressing those people in the center. And the sad thing is, in America, many of them don't feel like they have a voice because the right-wing reasonable people are looking at a party that represents them that's lost the plot in a way that is global, historic, epic. And as for the Democrats, the same thing cannot be said. Okay, it's not the same thing. But the Democrats do have a degree of dependence on and fear of the progressive movement that the center disdains. And so they look at these two parties and they want a centrist party, and there is none, essentially. But I think you and I could be in such a party, and I think in the dialectic that we promote here, this discussion, I think we both try to be open-minded. I know I do, and I know that you do. And so we can have a discussion with these people. In fact,
absolutely, we do regularly. And so look, if you find yourself here and you're disagreeing mostly, but you're open-minded, ask questions later is where you can find more from Dan. He is one of the most knowledgeable people about everything going on in every corner of the globe that exists on planet Earth, and he's worth following, and he's worth knowing, which is, by the way, the name of my Substack as well, where you can find all my writing for my own purposes and in Newsweek. Dan, have a great holiday. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And I will see you in the new year.
Transmit my season's greetings to Cliff, who's wonderful.
Well, let's do that right now. Here he is.
All right. I want to be able to say hi to Dan and Matt at the same time. So I get to
What a moment.
Well,
Merry Christmas, season's greetings. And I'll just say one thing here. I don't want to take over your show, Matt. Even though I talk too much on my own shows, I would do it even more on yours probably. But what's changed here, I feel like, is it's a very important sort of cultural moment, which is, it used to be that you knew that where on Christmas Eve and Christmas, if you walked, if you wanted to find Jews, you could just walk into a Chinese restaurant.
Oh, I'm going to cover that later in the show.
Now it seems like it's a live stream. So what it seems like from now on is that anybody live streaming on Christmas Eve or Christmas, you know where your Jews are. They're not necessarily in a Chinese restaurant anymore.
That is very, very observant.
Is that profound?
I mean, hold on. I'm about to blow
So here we are, three Jews wishing each other Merry Christmas.
And then I've got Lawrence Winterman coming on with me after this, because we're gonna show the whole thing that Barry Weiss, another Jew who is one I don't like very much, but not because she's Jewish, spiked the whole report on Secot, and so we're going to show the whole damn thing to everybody if they want to hang around and see it.
All right, well, let's get to that. I want to tee you up for that. I want to get Dan out of here. We are three unwise men, and we're about to go down to two. Dan, I will see you in the new year.
Seriously, Dan, Merry Christmas. Friends. Great even just to overlap with you for a bit. We'll have to have you back on ours soon.
All right, so Cliff, I previewed this. Let's get right to it without further ado. So I previewed this a little bit earlier. I played a clip of it, but you're going to do what I think is sort of a civic act in just a few minutes. Tell people what you're doing, and I hope they will stay tuned for it.
And I bet, the people, especially those that moderate some, here, the great Jim and Cynthia and folks like that will we're not And this is so last minute, they didn't even know about it. So, because I was planning on taking this time off and just chilling, maybe watching some, a cool, like, violent movie where the good guy wins for once, so kind of thing, and instead of our real lives. But this was just, but this is a civic duty. I was like, I've got to go in because the fact that Thank You Canada, they played the segment that was done on Secot. This was checked by lawyers. This was checked, by in the legal department in CBS, Ellison, Weiss News, or whatever the hell it's called these days, Paramount, Skydance, 47 other entities. It was, they people put their lives on the line. It's like if you ever saw the movie The Insider, these people put their lives on the line to talk about what had happened to them, and then Barry Weiss spikes the story for complete horseshit. I mean, just, oh well, we haven't given they haven't responded, so now they have a kill switch on the other side, which is if the Trump people choose not to respond to anything, you can't go with any story. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And so, I mean, they interview these guys who will tell you about how they were tortured, about how they had to lie in their own feces and urine, how they were piled up on top of each other like logs, how they, were chained, naked. They were, I mean, this is the stuff of horror. This is the stuff of authoritarian regimes, of fascism, of Stalinism. And we have paid El Salvador to take innocent people, the people that Judge Boasberg ordered Kristi Noem to turn around and bring back here, but she still sent them over there. And then she went and took one of her nice cosplay pictures in front of them, and which is humiliating to them, another violation of the Geneva Conventions. And we're going to show you the whole damn segment because there is nothing wrong about it. There are no questions with it. There are no issues with it, except for we've got a bunch of cowardly assholes in Washington who apparently like to torture and destroy the lives of innocent people, and feel no remorse for it. And it ain't about drugs and it ain't about immigration. If it were about drugs, and maybe they'd have an issue with Ronnie Jackson, the guy that handed out more pills in the White House, than that pile of Adderall on Donald Trump's desk that Noel Castler claims he snorts. I don't know. I didn't say it. Allegedly, it's not me. But a number of people around Trump have made that claim. A number of people around Marco Rubio the other night was looking very sniffy. If you saw him, moving the mouth around. I don't know. A couple tells there. So, and his brother-in-law, by the way, was arrested and went to prison for drug trafficking. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that if drugs were truly the issue here, there's a lot of people very close to him they could take care of, and maybe Don
he
Jr.
wouldn't have pardoned the former Honduran president who was
exactly a Honduran guy who's one of the biggest
maybe
drug dealers out there. That kid who what was the name of his, who was running the dark web, which was trafficking women too, shocking, and selling drugs. He that kid's family, I'm sure, gave him money. He pardoned him. I can't remember his name anymore, even though I wrote a Substack on him. They've been surrounded by this stuff. They don't care about it. It's like everything else. It's just a reason, a BS reason to do exactly what they want to do.
I'm going to basically do a public service here, and I'm going to boot you in just a second so that
I think you have to
to do this, because like I said, I think viewing this, sharing it is a public service. And because I've been trying to engage you, you missed, like we were up in the 500s, 600s, like live views a few minutes ago, and then
that's incredible today.
A lot of the trolls just evaporated.
Well, I hope some more of them come and visit, because on a day, I can just treat it like Festivus, and as we are a blended Jewish, Christian, and completely non-practicing any of them family, my family, so we can we do the Christmas presents and stuff because it's fun, but we're not out there. I think Jesus was a pretty cool dude. Not sure he rose from the dead, but that's a conversation for another time.
You know what? It's a conversation that I'm about to have right now. And let me just say to Kinky Streets, who's been saying this, we're live. We're just the comments. We just had so much going on that I'm late on the comments, and maybe YouTube is delaying you a little bit.
They were running slow the other day.
Live.
I don't know if that's an issue. But that was happening. So I don't know. But listen, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for switching with me, man. It was great to cross paths here. We're like two ships that crashed in the night normally off the coast of Venezuela.
I'd love to do it more. I'm just always wiped out from the stuff I do.
But and you know what? I can't. I'm. You've got Katie Fang. You've got other.
Well, that was a cool. She's hilarious. She curses more than he curses more than I do.
Oh yeah, no, that was
legitimately
awesome.
curses more than I do.
I was lurking the whole time as one of the chat family people. It was awesome. It was great
Oh
to be on
yeah,
the
I
other
didn't
side
see
of
you.
it.
I'm sorry about it. I just was. I mean, she's incredible. That was fun. But you've got a great show here. You brought in a lot of folks. That is fantastic. Enjoy your Chinese food tonight. And-
That's where I'm going right now. That, you know what? Let's put the banner up. I'm gonna get you out of here. And Cliff, I hope people will hang on. 5 minutes from now, we're gonna have this viewing of.
I'll just say, if you want to
60
see me
Minutes story.
angry, you want to see some rants, and you want to see some when innocent people are bullied and picked on, and what we did to these people in this 60 Minutes report, I'll have some things to say. So please stick around. I hope
Stick
you guys
around.
will. That's why I came in on a day that I hadn't planned to. Matt, you're awesome. Let me get out of here and let you give your
Right
final
back at
goodbye.
you. All right,
Take
you're
me out.
booted, man. You're booted. We'll see you in a few minutes. All right, look, let me close out on this. I was gonna talk a little bit about the evidence that we were gonna hit the tipping point. You know what? If you want to read about that, it's right on my Substack, worthknowing.substack.com. But now I have a back end that I have to that I have to respect, because Cliff is getting all teed up to go. So I want to close out by talking for just a minute about Jewish Christmas. It is Christmas Eve. I am Jewish, and I'll first say that I like saying Merry Christmas to people. I like hearing Merry Christmas from people. Now, it's probably partly because I'm in a blended family. My wife is Catholic, and I love my wife, so I have positive associations with Christianity. But look, I also just firmly believe that 99% of people out there who say Merry Christmas to me are doing it out of a place of genuine kind of love and joy. And I am more than happy to receive some of that and send it right back. But still, I have to share a little secret, just a little secret. I know my wife listens to this after the fact, so I think she knows this about me. I love the way our family celebrates Christmas. I do. I love it. But I also kind of miss Jewish Christmas. Jewish Christmas is great. It's so amazing. You basically just go to the movies and go to a Chinese restaurant, and the only people who are out on the streets are you, Jewish people and Chinese people, and you give each other a knowing nod when you walk into the restaurant, like, ni hao, my friends, and they're like, shalom, playa, and you just feel like you own the streets, right? Like you're like the lords of creation. It's so much fun, but it's okay. It's okay. I let go of that 20 years ago. I'm delighted with the Christmas that I have. I like my adopted Christmas. We're heading in about an hour to Christmas Eve Mass, which I love this church. You know what they do? They sing We Three Kings, and they do a Christmas procession with pantomime animals, like, you know, the animals in the manger. They own every year. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. They own this pantomime camel. It's like a two-person costume, a front and a back. It's a camel. And for no reason at all, they made a sexy camel. Like the camel has pouty lips and long eyelashes. I know this is weird, but I look forward to seeing the sexy camel every year because it's just so darn funny. So look, that's the way I blend being Jewish and being part of a half Christian family. And I love it. It's fun. And I would like to close on two things. One is to say Merry Christmas to all of you to whom that greeting, that wish is significant. And if it's not to you, then happy holidays, happy new year. I really appreciate you all being here. Even if you're here to disagree with me in a polite way and engage, I appreciate it. It makes this fun and lively and energetic and meaningful. And second, I just want to close out on a piece of video that captures the way that I try to pitch in and help out and have fun. This is actually, this is me. This is some video of me and what I do on Christmas. So we'll go out on this, and let me just say happy holidays to everybody.
On Moishe, on Herschel, on Shlomo, says Hanukkah Harry 8 nights a year. On Moishe, on Herschel, on Shlomo, means that Hanukkah Harry is here.